I got these wine glasses for myself, and then I realized when I opened the box that they are plastic. So it's my present. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hi, lovely to see you all, and welcome to the final Center for Poetry and Poetics event for this academic year 2022. We'll continue next year, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that after the readings. Welcome to our mini online audience as well. The recording, the event is recorded, writers, if that's okay with you, and then Adam is going to sort of fiddle with it tech-wise, and we'll make a Center of Poetry and Poetics YouTube a link whenever that's going to be ready. So a really lovely and warm welcome to the three performers, writers today. The order of the readings will be, we're gonna start with, it's going to be an irregular event, slightly irregular event. So we're gonna have three writers, but four performances. So we're going to welcome Scott Thurston first, who will kick off with the evening tonight, followed by Ghazal Mosadeq, and then Scott is going to be next on again, and we might have to do a little bit of Kinepoetic moving around ourselves. We'll see what the instructions are going to be. And the third reader for tonight is Sharon Kivland, who we've been trying to pin down for many years, but this is the time. So thank you for coming, and thank you for accepting, all of you, our invitation. There is no break between the readings tonight, so apart from the little moving around at some point, which means that I'm going to introduce the writers straight away and in one go, and that will be it from me. I might come and say a few words about next year's schedule and program, but other than that, I'm just going to start with, because Scott is starting tonight, with Scott Thurston, who is a poet, mover, and educator. Scott has published numerous books and chapbooks on poetry, most recently Terraces. This book came out in 2022, and Phrases Towards Kinepoetics, which was a Contraband book, a 2020 publication. Scott is founding co-editor of Open Access Journal of British and Irish Innovative Poetry, and he co-organized the long-running poetry reading series, The Other Room in Manchester, which I'm sure you're all aware of. That the reading ceased to exist about 4 years ago, or something like that. I might ask you a little bit about that later. Since 2004, Scott's been developing Kinepoetics, integrating dance and poetry, which has seen him studying the dancers in Berlin and New York, and collaborating with 3 dancers in the UK. Scott is a professor in the English department at the University of Salford, where he has taught since 2004. And as far as I remember, he did perform here quite a few years ago now, and you were already incorporating movement in the performance. So very interested to see what's happened since then. The second reader, warm welcome to Ghazal Mosadeq, who is a poet, editor, and translator. She's the founder of Pamenar Press, an independent press with an interest in plurilingual and multicultural experimental poetry and translation. Her poetry and critical writing in Persian have been published in Iran by various publishers, Morvarid, Negah and Hirmand. She has also been published various presses and in various journals, just a few to mention: Gammm Press in English and Italian, Tamaas Foundation, Litmus Press, Poetry Wales, Oversound, Blackbox Manifold, among many others. Ghazal is a member of the editorial advisory board for the Journal of the British and Irish Innovative Poetry, working with Scott. And thirdly, I would like to welcome Sharon Kivland, who is an artist and writer. Her work considers what is put at stake by art, politics, and psychoanalysis. She's currently working on the natural form, fables after La Fontaine, and the Furies. She's been called a poet, to her surprise. She's also an editor and publisher, the latter under the imprint Ma Bibliothèque. Her novel ABC was published by Moist Books in July 2022, and she's writing a new book entitled Almanach. She will be reading today from ABC, a selection of entries on poets, or so we hope. So a really warm and heartfelt welcome to the three of you. But before I sit down and before Scott begins, just to say that it's unusual. We used to do this, but we are doing this again. We've got a little sort of table with beautiful and absolutely gorgeous looking books by the three authors, but also by some of the presses they run. For example, Ghazal's got various Pamenar texts here, and also Sharon's new book, Scott's I spotted your beautiful sort of reflections on dance and poetry. So not in the non-existent break, but after the reading, do come and mingle with the authors, come and have a chat with them, and open your wallets and purses. And
I got a card reader.
We've got the card reader. Okay, so Scott Thurston. I'm just going to leave it here for now.
Thanks, Maggie. For this first set, I'm going to perform two pieces, one without words and one with. But before I do that, I wanted to dedicate this reading to Alan Halsey, who, aside from being a great poet, very closely associated with Sheffield, was also a really good friend and is much missed. For Alan, there is no limit to these manners extended across the spectrum. Take a phrase, look at it from all angles. I mean, all angles. Repeat it 100 times in different configurations. Now, do you know what it means? You know what it means. Nothing layers up waste to waste, building towards the big eruption that scorched my larynx with the general economy, giving away your call for papers. Every shell, 2 shells. The consequence certain. How long do you mean to be content in your translation? Let it continue to resound quietly resplendent. To give the account revealing more as a movement made around the heart, seen and approved. What not processed. Grateful to see it. House, if similar, out on stage. into silence. How can I? What will in relation? Trembling in the distance. Leadership undefended, as if I was in the form of it. Necessarily inevitable. Words to step back. Summoned to bear witness. Thank you.
Yes. Ready? I'm just talking to our online to audience over there. Thank you, Aggie. Thanks to everyone for coming. I'm going to read something that is part of the manuscript. It's unpublished, but what I'm going to suggest is that you can, because it is going to go on for some time, and it does not require full attention. So if you want to move around and talk and sleep or anything, but for real, it's perfectly okay to sleep and then wake up and see clients. But I shifted this around. Maybe I can explain it a little bit later, but there are chunks of text, and then there's some parables and fables in the middle. Just to give you a taste of the whole manuscript, I shifted some of them around. So it's not in the order that the manuscript hopefully is going to be. It's called The Basis of Oppression. And this line is from Sa'di of Shiraz, 14th century poet, in his book Gulistan. Originally, the basis of oppression in this world was small, and every newcomer added to it till it reached to its present extent. People want to push it to the dawn of time, but it hasn't been this much. Its basis was little, everyone added to it till it grew to this much. In passing, I hear from the radio this much love, and I think I misheard it. You can't mishear a meaning, you can just misunderstand it. This much love can concatenate. It can rule over any tendencies. It can, and it knows that it can, elastically stretch all pre-existing constraints, yet abide through those very constraints by cohesive attraction. This much love will always surface.
It will cast a pool of light inside the room from unknown sources to artfully attract all your attention toward the principles of light in all its gradations for you to forget that no one is in the room. This much love can validate that much deception. This much love can't act in a serious, mature manner. This much love, especially when we are not radically in it, centers on so much vague suppositions, yet it's there, even if currently not in a range of focus because it's too close. We've felt it and assumed this much love can't be good for anything. This much love can't be good for anything. It will destroy your neurosupras forever. This much love surpasses those flimsy moments that you take all passers-by for that face, or the vigilant nights spent rehearsing dreamed-up conversations in which you manage at the same time to conceal and lay bare this much love. This much love, if nothing, is way beyond that, and it's undeniable, and you can't prove it wrong. This much love, especially because it might materialize anytime, especially because we've been warned against it and pulled toward it many times, especially because it can reach wide ranges in no time, and especially because it appears too harmonized and tragically keeps that same harmony all the way, especially because its weight depresses any surface to the destruction of any imagined buoyancy, and meanwhile releases in return that euphoric hallucinogen that is exhilarating, but it's bad for us, is bad for us. This much love is bad for us, but reason against it is proven to be worse. Did it only work through neurobiological networks, reason against it still would be to break with reason. As if to insistingly trying to make me understand or try to understand for me and then insert it into my head that it was not me, a lovesick 15-year-old in Mahmoudabad, standing on a sea-facing balcony at 5 a.m. right in between the rice paddy fields and the foot of the hill and the sea at the exact place to catch like a thief the aroma of rice fields that was not made or meant for me, but was just passing me, traveling toward the sea, trying to say it was not me on the way of the wind, sucking the aroma down into my adolescent lungs and thinking, because longing woke me up so early this morning, then it's love that I'm breathing. To reason against it is trying to explain to me that feeling was nothing but my teenage oxytocin and vasopressin receptors canceling out all evil emotions for a short while for my still forming brain, body, and psyche to momentarily assume an all-engaging, rewarding, and yet ever evaporating imagination of unity. Unity with what? Was all that memory based on nothing but the effusion of monosaturated and polysaturated fatty acids exuding out of the tissue of the green rice, traveling with breeze to my direction only because the wind travels seaward on early morning hours? Is that what you mean to do to me? Then this much love can revolt. Those who undermine the self have gained the right to undermine the other. This much love has evolved throughout the history so much that it's reached the level of being chastened and subdued through cardinal self-critique, as well as sufficient somatic elasticity to turn into its own face. An addressing self and the challenger both combined in second person ask, "What have you done?" This much love can't be bad for you to the hilt, but it can outplay you when you're most ashamed to write about it. This much love, only because it's 2.5 years that You are deliberately not only not writing, but not even reaching the point to admit to yourself, let alone ever sharing it with anyone, that you keep contemplating pushing your left hand fiercely on that orange steaming kettle and counting from 1 to when you can smell it, for any idiot at least knows the nearly perfect method of abating their own pain. And you are never going to put such lousy, overused dramatization of suffering down on any page. This much love can worsen your already pretty shallow conceptions of agony by fooling you to assume somebody would care if you did such self-harm or would read if you wrote it. This much love makes you imagine you matter. It's one of the fables of the story. The fable of a soldier in the Infinite Year War. He shoot the door twice. He slipped away without telling anyone and left the reminiscent of the tobacco on the desk. Traveled cloaked as a tree, as a muddy heap, as a lizard, on long mugged roads, all among rotting corpses, but his life encircled among leaves of tobacco, circles of hell, leaves that can audibly flump on the floor. I'm not saying this. I never say circles of hell. The survivors witnessed. They keep talking about the image and the sight, the hell and the reminiscent of anything that can fly with the breeze and then fall. They fall and their images remain on our frontal cortex. Nothing happens in real time. So the second person narrative is just as useless. That's where fables start. He can rest his hand on the solid air. That's from a movie, slowed down by the corpses. I smell the corpses. I leave the TV room convinced that I smelled the corpses, while the life, my own's included, was embodied in what he imagined of his very own city that he never got to really defend, neither did he fully want to. He imagined, and even said so once, that in my entire life, what never got to occur were calamities. Okay, corpses, but nothing else. This much love is smarter than the self-congratulatory usuals. Like, you think those white guys are ridiculous because they aren't as much as us white guys concerned with concealing their grin when luring a light-hearted colored face into our coterie. This much love is self-recognition in a mirror gone wrong. This much love makes any us we use in any sentence to remind us that our new imagined pedigree is never going to work. Yet, being so tough on all other issues, it takes a dim view of anybody who uses us without asking themselves, us is invective of what? It also balks any time anyone assumed they might be allowed to say me, let alone us. This much love feels like it is reaching. With it in such sentence, I only mean our heads. Our heads are reaching the point to hit the curb. This much love, no matter how grand, had never stopped any head to hit any curb. This much love is so unaffected by our smashability. This much love can be schizophrenic. This much love can be schizophrenic. This much love can make you say she died. She died because she peered into the air in the room rather than looking outside through the window. This much love can turn into a schizophrenic form from all ends because there's still air around. That very air she looked at before she died consists of molecules bobbing chaotically, oscillating in and out of sync, stimulating each other with amplitudes of electricity, changing each other's behavior, and then hating that new behavior, distancing from one another into an apogee up till they crave proximity so miserably. A need marches them around, and to be honest, for loose relations, what is better than looking at air molecules, looking at them montages grotesque images in your prefrontal cortex, for you to never be ready to form an unbiased insight into the possibility of that feeling at the pit of your stomach one day be explained to others in a coherent way, that you viscerally felt for a long time and found a hard time wielding a sequential logic talking about it, yet you know it is detrimental not getting it out of your chest. That's why she refused looking outside, and that's why she died. The world was the one that connected us to the world. This much love only enters as a spin doctor to help the assumption of transparency stabled over some length of time before it becomes clear this much love can do little. This much love can do little. This much love counts our learned helplessness. This much love has seen us sinking. Take me, for instance. I, as someone who never settled on anything but happiness in exchange for happiness, started considering indignity options and felt too embarrassed to do anything but taxonomizing that abstract expulsion that we all deserve to feel at least once. And in this constant internal swell of unashamed emotions versus contained emotions, what was lost graver than this much love? And this much love can never be reproduced. It is not a poetic something elseness. This is us not realizing this is us. This much love has given multitude to some poetic expressions. This much love, maybe because it survived raucous paths in the past, gained along the way a property that can allow it to give meaning to a poem that can be deciphered by only one shaking body subject to corporal punishment. A kind of poem that can be claimed to a kind of poetry that normally never ease any difficulty as to offer any understanding, but remains in need for some pain-like something to give its own complexities a raison d'etre. This much love can do the job for that kind of poem, but up to a point. This much love first thought it would give meaning also to other kind of poems, like a kind of poem that can break down into many stolen poems or stolen lines from other poems, lines lying next to each other like patients in a small military hospital at wartime. Always more lines that you can fit in the room, and legs longer than beds, and then that sudden realization that our enemies don't really know us. This much love can make or break that kind of poem, or a kind of poem that can open the door at a car park in a quiet street for a car thief to get into that car and drive away, even if they get arrested later, even if they find the sound system in the car faulty before getting arrested, like us who found our not very functioning motivational intensity stolen, and it was broken into tiny pieces, smuggled out of the city borders. Then the one who's right now driving our bodies is going to be arrested soon. And how's that for the fear of being felt vacant? And did you notice? I said us again. The fable of a juvenile vision. Turns out I've been a little child too, barefoot on seared asphalt of the far-flung streets of Sijon, where magnolias die, where she says, "Your feet are dry now," and adds, "I'll meet you in 7 years' time at the birthday party outside any poem. Will you keep it that way?" This much love is not anywhere. This much love plays hide and seek with all riddle solvers. I'm not only thinking Oedipus here. I'm thinking Avicenna too, when he memorized the metaphysics word by word and could read it by heart till the commentary of Al-Farabi unriddled the lines. For him to even see how abstract binary concepts, chicken and eggs, out of all alternative options, or I'm thinking of anyone who seeks for an emotional territory in which they can feel free enough to sacrifice all their feelings for one moment, but then apostrophize that moment into schmaltz. This much love creates and resolves only to bring more complex riddles on seeing not only the love part, but the problem of how much is this much? This much love is already so much, it can't take any extensions or let me only add thises. And it's already saturated with its own boundaries that could successfully fail an impression of equilibrium by mixing the temporality with its continual mutation of physical expansion. Then somebody claims our recent efforts towards desiring shouldn't be mixed up with this much love, because this much love dates back almost everything. It is recorded around the time of hemlocks, throbbings, and a crowded restaurant suddenly feel empties, which was way before the quantum physics, chicory leaves, hypersonic missiles, and the self-conscious, oh no, I know it's really crazy. How this much love is experienced. It was claimed to be experienced in the taste of salt, but by those who pay attention. But it's been experienced in everydayness too, perhaps sometime in assembly lines. It's been experienced to be as unreal as a map, abstracting familiar spaces to simulate a sense of confirmed familiarity. Loss has been experienced, and being lost. It's been experienced in the poetics of attempt on its reinvention, because for this much love is unreal to be reinvented in une semaine en Enfre or anywhere else. It's been experienced in holding on to the facade of old buildings as a metaphor for a collective collapse. Now, imagine we won. Imagine we did manage to change and reinvent this much love. What do we do with our love of the old structures? What do we do with our excessive drinking, our crusades, our low wages, our forgotten ferries, our ethnic heritage, our knickknacks, our late good afternoons, our really neatly conceptualized little hope flickering at distance and fragile to any blow? The song of the Sinbad of the sea. I floated on the sea, clinging on a piece of wood for 5 decades. Truth was I was submerged, every second going deeper. No oxygen, which we all agree I needed if I not to survive, but just for thinking a bit clearer. They say we do not consider the tongue, the language, and what is said. We take into account what is inside, what is emotionally experienced. But what is inside, if you've been sinking for decades and decades other than swallowed water? We ripped our chests open under the purple blueprint on the skin. There were dissembled wards floating and metastasizing everywhere, covering our limestone hearts. I think I should start here. Is it 20 minutes? Okay. Oh, all right, like, I go another. Yeah. This much love can camouflage. It can shape the distance as a better looking, promising land. It stands geographically in the idea of elsewhere. That is why we can't stay here anymore, and that's why now is killing us. But all that is not even a misconception of elsewhere. It is just a fatal, all-including fallacy. It's not accidental that the torture and territory are so close, and we have our torsos. We will have them. That is subject to torture always, and we are elsewhere, 6,000 feet beyond man and time. misreading neon signs and force metaphorizing the light for honesty, when even every cockroach half a meter down the ground knows there's no, where there's no light, where there's no camouflage. If you're an invader, if you're there to hide, you can do it in all honesty. Just keep quiet, if you will. Then I keep quiet here. Thank you. Thank you.
Two more pieces, one without words, one with words. Yeah.
Are we doing?
I'm going.
All right, now I'm taking the camera. I think we're supposed to be going.
Yeah, well.
Isn't she hilarious?
Gone to the loo.
He's running around. He's coming. Try and find it.
Hi, Johnny. Performers. Hiya. He's like a journalist.
Hello. I'm going to turn my camera off in a minute.
Hi, Chris. I'm not sure what's going on. I think it's part of the scene.
Just hanging.
Just hanging.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, there's definitely some people here. Oh, all right. I'm being quiet now.
There's something here to begin with. This vessel inside a body takes part in this discussion. What is the substance bridging between the known and the unknown? That vessel inside the body, around the body. There's no time to try it. In your hidden seduction. And demanding considerations and timing and climate and timing and climate and timing and timing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you decided to record it. Are we going back, Scott?
Okay.
Could you see anything? Could
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see
no, it was great. It was great. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, really? Just a second, you want to share? That's yours. Just before we kick off with the final reading, I also wanted to say, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, that what we normally do is have a little chat afterwards. So think of anything and all the clever questions we can ask.
Before I start, no dancing, no sleeping. But Scott's going to read a poem first.
Love's Letter. For, after, and to Sharon Kivland. When you want to get to the truth, sometimes you give up searching for meaning. We make this mistake all the time. I will always tell the truth, telling you all. You will place meanings here, despite yourself. C'est ça. That's all, isn't it?
Scott wrote this shortly after I had done in Manchester, where he made asked me the unfortunate question whether I'd really had a love affair with Chapbooks. How old was But that was more than enough as an apology. I'm going to read from my so-called novel, Avec ses dare. Very quickly, it was written over 1 year, according to the Freudian method of free association, which Freud describes as being like train travel, past the view, which is constantly changing. It was written 5 days a week for the analytic hour of 50 minutes every day, but as a Lacanian, I also practiced the variable session. This is the 4th reading from the book, and it's read according to the categories I extract from it, the daily entries. The first reading in Berlin was the entry on maids and their murderous ways. The second reading was on wolves. The third reading on encounters with works of art. This reading will be the extracts where poets or poetry appear, but they've also been edited because I didn't realize there were so many in the book, so I've had to extract some of them, and some are probably even questionable. And I'm also going to give you the ending. So I'll stop. Oh, it could have been, no, I won't, I'll just do another aside. It could have also been cyclamens, labyrinths, red threads, Walter Benjamin, Rousseau, quite a lot of Rousseau, he makes an appearance here. Anyway, so lovely hair, that would have been another thing. But tonight it's poets and poetry. 18. In the poem A Partial History, Ariana R. writes, "We were lost in a language of images. It was growing difficult to speak, yet talk was everywhere." 56. Were we all reading Rousseau at the same time, I wondered, at a time when we did not know each other, but in truth we hardly know each other now? Lisa R. wrote about the anonymous girl, abject, depraved, invisible, and read in Rousseau what she called an inadvertent formula for a solution that she had found only for herself in more arduous manner, piece by piece, through the rooms, the many rooms, the inhabitants and seductions, what she called the mistaken fucks. As though they're all not mistakes in their way. She told her reader, who might have been anyone except Rousseau, me for example, that depraved anonymity must be turned into a decor, a baroque device of O's within O's within O's, a carapace, exuding stitch by stitch, for which I read letter by letter, in which the drama of mortal self-invention would advance. She wrote that she would be schooled in the ornament of excess. She wrote that girlhood was in itself a baroque condition. Girlhood, then, which I never felt myself, though I saw it in others, even at an early age, would be infinite, theatrical, ostentatious, and grandiose, extravagant, absurd, misshapen, diseased. It would be an odd, imperfect, irregular pearl. 76. Dee told me today that she had a dream before Christmas in which I was drawing a red line on a map. I think she said it was a nap, but I could not hear her properly and felt I could not ask her to repeat what she had said, even though we had been speaking about repetition in Homeric poetry, about the ring composition used to keep a grip on the storyline, the recurring patterns of action, the ways of getting the poet back to the place he started, usually in 3 rings, repeated in reverse order, repeated patterns of form and content, containing what is unnarrated or unnarratable in the drive towards death and destruction. It goes ABC, CBA. It goes in 3s. ABC, DD, CBA. AB, X, BA. Entrance, coda, exit. First, last, first, hysterian proton. Abracadabra, sauf qui peut, for it's marked by digression. In some stories, there is a bull at the beginning and a bull at the end. There could have also been a bull section extra. Dee said that in her dream, the one in which I was drawing a red line on something, I said, the storyteller hasn't arrived yet. I was holding the place of a storyteller in the dream of another. This was not my dream, yet I was obliged to inhabit it, waiting for the arrival of someone who would tell the story, or telling me there would be a delay in telling the story. Anne C. wrote that sometimes she dreamt a sentence and wrote it down. Sometimes it was only nonsense. This sentence, dreamed by another, I said it sounded like something I might say, and so I wrote it down. But it is the X between AB and BA. I was surprised to recount this today in the middle of mythology. I could have done mythology as well, and we'll be doing that later in the year with Paris, but my editor says there's far too much mythology in it, and personally I think there are far too many cyclamens. In his account of his voyage, Ulysses, said it was inadvisable to retell a story already told. I am told in Greek, that is, to mythologize. 111. G sent me a poem by D.H. Lawrence after we'd talked about cyclamens and Rousseau's adventure. At first, she thought it was by another writer. Lawrence's cyclamens are Sicilian, and in the poem there was, because this is Lawrence, a man and a woman who came out from the undergrowth of their own hair, and they saw tiny rose cyclamens growing between their toes, the leaves of the plants sticky, earth, iridescent, toad, filmy, and other such Laurentian tropes. There are greyhound bitches. There could have been a dog section as well. And there, the cyclamens are ruddy muzzled like a group of hares fostered in the Parthenon marbles. There are violets. The cyclamen is sometimes called the Persian violet, sprinkling the unborn erection marbles. 129, and I might edit this one down a bit. Anne Leslie S. wrote of a chorus. This chorus sang or recited but forms of pain found the victim, forming rivulets around her eyes, the horns spiraled off her forehead. That each song she sang was sad, and there were 100 pale boys with devotees of pain. The women came in attitudes of wonder, majestic, God intoxicated, girded with snakes, forms at their breast. There was a voice on the telephone. It threatened a girl. Others threatened the same girl, or perhaps other girls, but the girls learnt to fight, to tuck jouissance into the coat pockets of history, she said, in her staggering invention, diamond all the way down. Her words, not mine, but some words we shared, she and some I stole from her without asking or apology. 164. Rosemary W. refused to accept the oppositions of night and day she must pit against others, the subtler periodicities against the emptiness of being an adult. She said that their traces inside her body attempted precariously, like any sign, to produce understanding, that though nothing might come of that, the grass was growing. She asked if words played their part. Rosemary, my dear Rosemary, they do. I assure you, and you know this, as you move between them, or step into your mother's room, or take a piece of paper, finding it to be already covered in signs. There is, after all, the paternal metaphor, phallic inscription, the subtle body of language, the illness made from truth, the couple as a symptom, the passage between terms, the special relation with lack, the mark in the signifier, the surrender to jouissance in the very articulation of signifiers, and further, moreover, bodily events in the discourse of the master or the discourse of capitalism. And I could go on relentlessly, insanely, on and so on and so on, with yelps of surprise or gasps of horror or wonder. Words also found their own way to House Next Door as rays converged and solved their differences, or if notes followed because drawn to a conclusion, she wondered. She said that if we do not signal our love, reason will eat our heart out, and before it can admit its form of mere intention, and we will not know what's happened. I should say I'm opening a bracket here because this is me speaking. This is true, est vero, c'est ça, c'est exactement ça, c'est bien ça, c'est cela pour moi, ça plane pour moi. C'était déjà ça. People know what happened. Precisely, exactly, and hearts will be eaten and cores extracted, and there will be blood on a sea of white lace. For instance, close of bracket. 194. There was a poem by Anne C. in which a wind described as glassy broke on a shore, which was shoutless and stirred around the rose. Then before a snow, before the emptiness of night, lanterns through shapes of companions, old companions, and there was a cold pause that followed. What night skinned off the hour? It was not after all a question. Boys sank, the wind blew on what had been their house. There was nothing for it but to row. This is slightly off the poetry track, but I had to put it in so that you can pick up a reference later on. Keep up at the back, please. 213. Oh, the beautiful Hortense. Oh, la belle Hortense, a distracted student of philosophy who appeared outside the grocer's shop wearing a tiny knee dress that barely covered her, but it was expensive, and all the looks turned to her, and she had no knickers on under the dress when she was late, as 5 pairs of eyes watched her disappear into Rue des Citoyens. The narrator felt the omission of a little slip of cloth might create an extremely difficult situation for his future. To be honest, Hortense did not really get much of a look in herself, though she was opened endlessly, and then later in another book she was kidnapped and a dog was murdered, and later still she was exiled to Kenilworth and was forced to play the role of Ophelia, and something was certainly amiss. This is what happened to women in the Oulipo, which has only ever admitted 5 women so far. Ciphers, archetypes, same old. In the ouvroir, women do what is appropriate to their sex. So Juliana S. and Stephanie Y. made their own manifesto, the Oulipo, taking on and off their clothes as they delivered it amid a great deal of shouting in the room. They asked what they needed and they asked what they wanted. They asked if there could be a new formation. They needed more addition and less constraint. They wanted complications and interconnections. They did not want to be caught in the very apparatus they sought to critique. 222. This year, it seemed that, like all the young poets, were reading Anna N. It was quite sudden, the close attention to one who'd never sought it, a woman who had enclosed herself increasingly, who had little interest in being published, but continued to write and draw thousands and thousands of poems written by hand, even more ink drawings, and over 800 notebooks. Sometimes she worked on a poem for 30 years, the proper time of writing, as Louis Z returned to the same poem, A, continued, came out of mysteries. Thin lines of thought were her raison d'etre. Sharon B. wrote about her in 2011, saying that her poems were like walking into a room in the middle of a conversation. He wrote that the work interrupted, and this was the voice of the poem, its method of communication, under attack, countering attack, in the danger of disappearing, of being forced to disappear. Anna M. said she was harassed, attacked, threatened with strangulation if she dared speak, that she was silenced. She wrote that some must never be allowed near her poems. Her poetry was not for them, and she would speak a language they could not comprehend. It might go like this, for example. Listen, read as though you entered the room where she was speaking and Sharon B. and I were listening. Grist of the mill, Camille Moulin 3, mistress classes, cross-coloured glass, scroll long, chisel pros and cons, slouch hat, raised, gutted, clothes, tense, racing scene, Letitia's, a back was taken that you were wanted. And now you can leave. This tiny extract ringing in your ear. Sharon B. left us, and it was too soon. She changed her names. Anna became Grace and Nancy, son became Son, and the daughter of Morris, the daughter of Clementina, was still sung of in both languages. She was lost at the memory of her parents dancing. She read by the light of the moon. She'd become her enemy who she could please. She was imagined to be who she was not, for she was not her. She wrote in her kiosk, what I need. 235. The wolf was at the door. What could be done when the wolf arrived? When the wolf was not a kind dog that only looks like a wolf, when the wolf was a figure of speech or a field spirit taking the form of a wolf, a corn demon hiding in the last sheaves at the end of harvest. When the wolf incarnated brutishness, cruelty, voracity, gluttony, cunning, impiety, and hypocrisy, or the Conservative government. When the wolf lied, when it snuffled at the keyhole, when it wedged its paw in the widening crack in the door. When it whined and howled and scratched its way in. When it bristled hair and breathed fire. When it stole the children and ate them up. When it brought calamity, ruin, difficulties. The wolf was at the door and it came in winter, in the cold spell when there was no money left for fuel and light. Juliana S. wrote of songs as poems, and that the refrain was when the singer made it clear they understood what was being lost. Her poems were about love and naming and movement. Women walked by, migrating geese flew, and in moving, humans and non-humans were together but knew it would not be for long. Though that did not stop the wanting to be together, the becoming with. She said that when she got angry, and it seemed to be often, she wanted to call some poets capitalist poets. She said that sometimes it felt like it was over, and it was not. That sometimes it felt like it had just begun and it was over. She wrote that she made a list of children's names, alphabetized it, got to O, and the children who are not there yet. O, S 4 times, Y and Z, she loved those children too. She wrote, that winter the wolf came, and that winter they were there, close together. How can one put one's head in the mouth of the wolf and take it out again safely? That was in the winter, the time of cold tales. 257, the last entry. So it could end with a song. It might be this one, Annabelle H. singing as Sam Moore, and he's singing as she sang, and in that case it would go, mountain hill, my best view, and the wolf would sound the laugh. This Sam was her sower, the sower of poppy seeds in gardens, on balconies in palaces that were now museums. Papava somniferum, seeds and milk and honey to calm a crying, sleepless child. Seeds and sugar and cinnamon with ground almonds or one, that's the Mundstreisel or Mohnkuchen, delicate and gentle. Schmackhafter, delicious. Or it might be the Song of Daniel, the one written by Aliès in autumn. And this one went, snow is falling in the winter, in the summer, leaves are falling in the spring, gone are the reasons, gone are the seasons, time has gone and taken everything. There, the purpose was noted, to tell of bodies transformed into shapes of different kind, following what was ignored, lost, rediscovered years later, and that this pattern would continue to repeat ad infinitum. Women would continue to turn into trees, giving up their bodies for garlands, their hearts beating still. That song went, that sweetly rose the sap of earth throughout her, and virginal light stretched out in leaves and branches, and happy birds dwelt in her, and the tree was in moonlight as her voice sounded wordlessly from the branches. And yes, one could die from a broken heart. Or this song, yes, this one to the ending, that went, it had been a long, long time, and the days grew short, and the autumn weather turned the leaves to flame, and no one had time for the waiting game, for the days dwindled to a precious few, and these precious few days. Or a swan song, the last gesture or performance, if one were to lead in style, nicely turned out, in hat and gloves and jewelry and red lipstick, in a smart coat for the coming cold season, without hissing or grunting, but with fists clenched, let it stand. I may be paraphrasing it or misquoting, that there's a poem by Bertolt Brecht. In these dark days, will the dark times, will there be singing about these dark times? Yes, there will be singing about these dark times. And so we end with a song. The many women in my book, who are nearly all Anna, or near enough, are joined by the soprano, my friend Anna Clementi, who, as is in Berlin, she couldn't come tonight, but she made the song for me anyway. The other mouse. Now, where is the other mouse? Come here. Here. You know it's not working. From May to December, and the days grow short when you reach September, when the autumn weather turns the leaves to flame. One hasn't got time for the waiting game. Oh, the days turn down to a precious September.
precious days I've spent with you. These precious days I've spent with you. When you meet with a young man early spring, they caught you in the grass. They woo you with songs and a cloudy room, but if you would examine the goods that bring, they have little to offer but the songs they sing, and a plentiful waste of time take, and a plentiful waste of time. Oh, you wait so long from May to December, but the days grow fast when you reach September, when the autumn weather turns the leaves to fade. One hasn't got time for the waiting game. Oh, the days bring on to a precious few. September, November, and these few precious days I've spent with you. These precious days I've spent with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon, and thank you, Ghazal, and thank you, Scott. So before I'll invite you to come and have a chat with the writers and take a look at the book and the bookstore, I'm just going to quickly say that we're going to continue with the program, with the schedule for the Center for Poetry and Poetics in February. We don't know the dates yet, but just to reveal a few names, we're gonna have Kate Killerley at some point, prose writer from London. We will have an online reading with Banu Kapil at the end of April. Very likely, I am in the middle of conversing with Mendoza again to reschedule Tommy Pepys, and I was thinking, because she collaborates with Peter Manson a lot, they will probably come, the two of them, as a pair. And just to say, it is a real, it's been really heartwarming to see Geraldine with us tonight. And it is great that you're here, but also just to say that we're planning a tribute event with readings from Alan Hawes's work, to be confirmed, and the date is whenever suits you and all those who will take part. But I was thinking sometimes when it's warmer, May or March, we'll discuss it. April is slightly difficult because we've got the 3-week Easter break, so nobody will be around. That's really difficult. But other than that, we'll So dates to come. We've got the schedule already. It's just to solidify them in the calendar. So can we, before I will ask you to move around a little bit again and come and chat to the poets, we won't do now the Q&A in this open air because some of you might want to rush away. But if those who want to hang around with Sharon, Ghazal and Scott and take a look at the book and have a chat with them, we are here till for another 20-25 minutes. All right. Huge thank you again. And thank you.
Thank you. See
See you soon.
next time. Fantastic.
Thanks so much, Aggie.
Thank you so much. We'll send you the recording once we're done. Take care, guys. Thank you for coming. Bye. Oh, yeah, I have to say goodbye.